Circling back round then on those changes that are coming down the pipeline in terms of bots, whatever we call them. What's the implications then on the worker and the workforce that you've got, and the implications of how their jobs will change and how it might need to change interacting with those kinds of technologies? Is anyone seeing the implementation of that bot technology and what it's doing to the individuals? Any changes in the workplace accordingly?
It's about adaptation. So as you all know, some of the underground routes are now fully automated. The driver is there just in case. And we're on the Thameslink trains, and between St Pancras and London Bridge, they're all automated now. So the drivers have had to adapt to the fact that they cannot put their hands on the thing unless there's a problem. It's all about adaptation. People are going to have to adapt because the reality is that it'll happen more and more.
And what implications are you seeing from that already, having automated that? What happens to people in that?
At the moment, I think I think it's working in terms of they realise that we the volume of trains that we push through that line. You need computers to help you with it. It's the only way. The Victoria line, I think, is every minute. Humans can't cope with that.
No, and I guess we're talking about both productivity but also safety.
Yeah, safety
here as well. Yeah,
you need signalling, and people are humans, and reality. They have to be there.
Dave, in your scenario, tell us.
Well, I think it's easy to forget managers in this process. So I see a lot of effort put into the frontline worker, whether they're front office, back office, right? The person who's using the tech is often, that's where the effort goes in retraining. Managers are often forgotten, I find, right? So as a manager, I might still be more comfortable with my Excel spreadsheet because that's what I've been using all this time, and it's my version. And moving those people to a different way of accessing information and managing staff, I think is a gap. I see that quite often.
So the management of the change,
management of
and
the people,
of,
how you run a team in the future, and what you need to consider. And I said there's a lot of effort goes into the person using the tech, but not necessarily the manager of the people using the tech.
Okay.
And I think it's really important that we as leaders of the technology change with the business leaders explain why and what's going on. And previous life, I was IT director at John Lewis when we were going through the online revolution, which is what we called it. We called it, this is going to go on omni-channel, and that had enormous implications for people who work in John Lewis sort of retail stores, because returns started turning up. You had to manage all of that. You had to recognise that a lot of the sales in your area were made online, but you may have sort of helped that because you demonstrated something in the store, or the way people were shopping was changing fundamentally. And what the leadership of John Lewis then at that time did was got us all out to go and talk to everybody in the store. I had High Wycombe and Newcastle, and talked to the town hall about why retail was changing, and we needed to recognise that, and that meant their jobs would change fundamentally, and after Black Friday. There'll be an awful lot of returns coming into the store that they have to manage and deal with. They're not selling things; they're actually, which is, at first sight not terribly, a sort of augmentation to their job, but actually getting people to recognise that was how things changing. And one of the critical things that we did was make sure that any sales in that catchment area online were scored to that store so they could see the big picture. So I think, it's hardly original, is it? But just communicating and explaining is really, really important.
Sure. And Mark, can I come to you? I mean, how do you see yourselves either helping other organisations or even internally, adopting change and making the most out of technology? We've all seen in the past technologies applied and then sort of being 30% consumed because they've not been well landed. From your perspective, what do you see?
Well, I think it's just really interesting on your point around John Lewis, because that's something that moved to transition to online. I mean, that's gone through full cycle, and look at the impact on the high street today.
Yeah.
It wasn't, there's often, it's a Y2K, there's a load of, you're doom mongering, but actually that was a reality. And I think that a lot of businesses now, and certainly as we're going through the transformation, change it's just there, it's going to happen. But no change means no business. And the statistics that come out from this, where people don't execute their digital transformation properly, there's a very bleak outcome at the end of it.
Yes, we've seen.
So, you have to change. And I think now employees today understand that, because they're also consumers of technology themselves. So, it's interesting, but I'll always support my local store, except that I shop online. So the reality, is very much there, and it's then taking them on that journey to say, it's different, but that doesn't mean it's bad. It's just a different focus, and you're going to be deployed in a different way, and so in our business, certainly moving maybe more back office functions to then redeploy to more customer facing that can give, to then answer your question, to then what we find with a lot of customers that are going there is there's a lot of noise. I think I mentioned that before. How can I pick between these different vendors? How can I best pick a path that that enables this consumer transition or employee transition? Moving to cloud. I know Mott went through this. You have to make things more secure. But then it's not a very nice experience for people dialing on from different places until you modify that, improve that. I think you had a phrase of frictionless user experience that working there. And again, it's part of that iteration. So we find if we can reuse those assets, say more of the mundane back office stuff, that is critical, but it can be automated, which frees up money to put more customer facing expertise to then go and help companies transition and learn from, we did work with Carlsberg. I stood up on stage with the CTO. I wouldn't know how to make beer, but we do know how to make networks work better. So it's very much,
probably the best network in the world.
Probably the best network in the world, yes, to coin the phrase.
Very good.
I think it's a great example where I think partnerships are so important in this area, right? Because, partners get to see so many applications of their skill set, right, or their product, whatever it might be. So, moving away from suppliers where, again, we think we know what we want, but actually moving it into a partnership model where we're actually saying, yes, we'll have the software, but how should we use it? Yes. What have you seen elsewhere? What is best practice? We want to move to that. I think that's a big step we've had to go through.